During my very early childhood, my parents were great trout fishers, and we used to spend our summers on the Welsh borders. And we, in those days, were allowed to go out with the farm workers into the fields. You could even share their sandwich, and if you're lucky, a little snippet of their cider, while the lunch was being had in the hedge during harvest time. I mean, can you imagine a more idyllic thing to be doing? I started to be a farmer with a very specific purpose in mind, and that was to produce fabulous beef. And I had felt for years that the quality of the beef in this country had suffered from farmers being told that they should produce beef with a minimum of fat. And if you have beef with no fat, it doesn't have a lot of flavour, because the flavour is carried mainly in the fat. Wagyu is an old Japanese breed of cattle. Japan, or Japanese, wa, and gu means cow. And because it developed away from Western countries, it developed differently. It has a much greater propensity to store fat actually inside its muscles. And Wagyu fat has a special deliciousness and texture because it is much, much higher in oily, soft fat rather than the harder, saturated fat found in normal beef. By bringing pedigree embryos in from abroad, I started the first commercial-sized pure Wagyu herd in this country, and that has now grown to 450 animals. We produce only pure Wagyu, rather than that produced from Wagyu bulls crossed with ordinary breeds, which represents most of what is sold in this country. But this meat is, in reality, only half Wagyu, and mostly lacking its special deliciousness. Real Wagyu beef is expensive to produce, principally because the animals are very slow maturing and live for about 3 years, as opposed to 15 to 20 months in ordinary cattle. It means that many of the costs are up to 3 times greater. But my goodness me, the resulting beef is remarkable. The farm is dedicated to producing the very best pure Wagyu, principally for chefs, but also for retail customers, enabling them to receive fresh, pure Wagyu all the year round.
The kitchen love it, because we love good ingredients. That's what we're all about. We're only as good as the quality of ingredient that we put on the plate. When you see a product like the Wagyu cattle and the extreme marbling and the fat content with it, you almost know before you cook it, this is going to be good. It has that unique burst of flavour which hits you. As soon as you eat it, you get this, it's almost bursts in your mouth, and that's the fat content in there. And then you get this wonderful beefy flavour from it. It's unique.
In the summer, the cattle live in the fields where they feed on grasses with clover and other legumes, and in winter we house them and feed them principally with crops grown on the farm and preserved for winter feed. For the final 9 months of their life, they feed on a special diet of our farm produce supplemented with grains from elsewhere. Wagyu are a sensitive breed. You have to look after these animals. I decided to build a completely new set of cattle sheds in a design that would give our cattle the best quality of life that we could. Why? Because I love my cattle. And 2, I believe that it is the way to produce quality meat.
The relationship between the Fat Duck and Earl Stonham has been ongoing since the first cattle of Wagyu that was bred there, and Heston and the Fat Duck have been working with Earl Stonham since. With all the products, companies, producers that we work with, we try to spend as much time at the actual farms as possible in order to really get a first-hand look at how animals are bred, treated, the philosophy and the energy that comes from those people, just as it does come from the kitchen as well, which then we can relate to our guests and actually feel very positive that, you know, it's to the highest standard.
Chefs these days are very conscious of many other things than just the flavour of what they are buying. They want to know where the animals come from, they want to know how they've been brought up, they want to know that the people who are bringing those animals up are environmentally responsible and truly care for their animals. And we think that we fulfill all their expectations in that respect, because their expectations are our expectations. We make sure that from the very beginning of an animal's life to the end of an animal's life is as good as it possibly can be. I mean, why do I care? Because it's in my nature to want to do things absolutely.